Hi everyone, it's Shel from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's day 18 in the 2022 Countdown to Christmas series, and these cards are featuring a plethora of patterned paper. So here are the cards we're going to do, and this was actually a suggestion from one of my sweet viewers, Joan. I had made a comment to her and that I was running out of ideas, and she said, how about patterned paper and ephemera? But I don't have a lot of ephemera, but you guys know that I have a ton of patterned paper. So I pulled out two of my Christmas packs, a Very Merry Christmas from Hobby Lobby and this North Pole from, I believe it's from AC Moore, and picked out 6 different pattern papers, 3 that mainly feature green and 3 that mainly feature red, because I wanted to use a brand new die to me, the Hero Arts Sentiment Strip. So you see that here, it's a fancy die. There is a coordinating stamp set that goes along with it, but I did not use that for this card. I do have an idea for another card, but I decided not to use it for this because I came up with some different ideas. So I ran that die through my die cutting machine 6 different times and cut out all of the pattern strips that you can kind of see there on the right. You'll see the whole thing in a minute. I'm taking a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base, opening it up and putting ATG down on the front of the card. We're going to work right on the card front for this. So I'm picking the strips from that little bin that I have them sitting in. This is just from Target. And I alternated between the mainly red and the mainly green ones, just so that there wouldn't be 2 reds or 2 greens next to each other. And I'm going to work down the entire front of the card. When I started doing this, I thought this is what I was going to do for all of the cards. And then I got some other ideas of things to do, kind of shaped cards or shapes out of the pattern paper, because I was having a hard time trying to figure out what was going to go on top of this. I thought this would just look like a really nice background, and I thought that I was actually going to stamp on top of it. And then when I looked at it all finished, it's way busy. And I'm not a busy card person, and I think that's why a lot of the times I don't mix and match pattern papers. I seem to have a really difficult time with it. It took me a while to find the pattern papers that I thought would look good together. It was a little bit easier because they came from paper packs that didn't necessarily go together but coordinated. So if I was picking out single pieces of paper, it definitely would have been harder for me. So once I finish that whole entire front, I'm going to cut off the very little excess that was on the sides, and then at the bottom, I didn't line it up exactly straight the whole entire way down. I got kind of sidetracked somewhere, so there was a teeny tiny piece hanging off the bottom. But that card front, we're just going to hold off on that and work on the rest of it later. So then this next one, I'm going to be using all of the greens for this. And this is just a scrap. It's actually a card base that I cut into 2 because we're going to be doing 2 different things out of this. So we're going to be making a wreath out of it. And I was just looking at where I needed to line up my strips. Now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why did I not just start at the top? Why did I start kind of like an inch or so down? It would have been easier to line them up straight, but for some reason, my brain was like, oh, start down because you're not going to need the whole entire paper. And silly thing that I did not cut off the excess, and I put glue on the entire piece. So fun fact, the paper actually stuck to the cutting plate when I went to cut it out. So I was kind of a mess with this one, but I liked the way this looked. I liked making a wreath, which these are just some scallop dies that I've had in my stash for a really long time. These might be spellbinders. I ran them through my die cutting machine, and I actually got two wreaths out of this. The big one, and then the one from the middle is actually a smaller wreath that I'm going to use an even smaller die to cut the middle out of. So I got 2 different cards out of this one pattern paper, I guess, putting together. I don't know what you would call it. The pattern paper assembly. I did get 2 cards. I got a larger wreath and then a smaller wreath. So there is that smaller wreath. There's the ring that I'm going to use to cut out the middle for, and I was trying to figure out what to do to finish this one off, because I felt like it needed a little something, especially where the tape had pulled up a teeny tiny bit of that pattern paper. But I'll get to that in a minute, because I really wasn't sure what I was doing. I really had no idea. I had one game plan going into this, and then totally changed my mind because I thought I was going to do the pattern strips all the way down. Now for this one, I saw a card somewhere where somebody did triangle pattern paper trees, but it was from one solid piece of cardstock. And I thought, well, if you could do it from a solid piece of cardstock, you could do it from these kind of strips. So I placed the largest and one of the smaller triangle dies on the paper, and then cut around where it needed to, where I would need to, how much paper I would need for the larger ones, and then for the two medium-sized ones, because the larger ones we're going to do in red, and then the smaller ones we're going to do in green. I wanted there to be red trees and then green trees. So that's all I'm doing, is adding the pattern paper here the same exact way that I did it before. And this is just another way to stretch your supplies. These are mainly meant for sentiment strips dies, but that doesn't mean that you can't use them for other things. I think that having a lot of doing this with just some pattern paper and leaving it in one of those containers is a great way to, if you're trying to do something quickly, or if you have a color scheme that you like, you can definitely make shaped objects out of these things to put on the front of your cards. You could do birthday balloons with this. You could do a cake with it. There's just so many different things you can do. So I just thought that I didn't want to just show you putting the strips down on a card. I wanted to show you a couple different ways that you could use these. So we're going to run this through my Bitty Buzz Cutter, and it was really, really difficult. For some reason, these dies, and I think these are from MFT, because this is from a banner set. The two largest ones actually have the, almost look like, I'm not going to say wings, but they kind of have like little designs on the side of them to make them more of a banner. But these ones have some kind of plastic inside, like on top of the die, and it seemed to get stuck at the very bottom. So I don't know what that's for. I don't know if you're supposed to take the plastic off, if you're supposed to leave it on, but I left it on. So I cut out the red ones, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the green, just start lining that paper up. So obviously, if I went to go do some more sentiment strips ones like the first card that we did, I would probably have to cut some more paper, because I think I am really running low on green, because I used all of that green to go ahead and do the wreath cards. So doing the exact same thing, just alternating all three of those strips. You could have cut out even more reds and greens, but I was just trying to use what I had already cut out, not cutting any more. So before I run it through the Bitty Buzz Cutter, I'm going to cut off all those extra strips. Normally I would save these things, but I just decided not to. I had so many more strips left over that it was completely fine. So I'm going to do the same thing, line these up, put some washi tape down on them, and then run them through my Bitty Buzz Cutter. Moving on to the assembly of the card, I am going to cut out this bow from that red and white candy cane striped paper. The bow is from the Winter Bouquets die set from Honeybee Stamps. I found some scrap cardstock in my stash as background paper for the two wreath cards. I'm using my Honeybee Bee Creative glue to go ahead and attach that. And I'm going to be putting the larger wreath on with that little bit of the ripped pattern paper at the bottom. That bow is going to kind of hide it. There are some embossed lines that are in this bow, but you couldn't really see them with the pattern paper. So I'm going over them with my Copic marker. And as I'm looking at it, that bow that I just kind of moved to the top of the screen, I think I actually like that one better. I used a darker red marker, and I didn't think I liked it as much, but now that I see it on screen, for some reason I do. So I'm going to glue the smaller wreath down to the same type of card, or same pattern paper card front as the one that I just did. And then I'm going to have to cut out another bow for that one and did the exact same thing. Now for the trees, I picked out another piece of scrap pattern paper that's white with some red polka dots on it. I didn't want it to be too busy because I felt like the trees were extremely busy. This is one where I could probably have put another piece of pattern paper behind it, use a little bit more patterns. But again, I was being really conservative because I don't think I'm great with pattern paper mixing. So just gluing the trees down, kind of making them all different heights and trying to stagger them, some in the back, some in the front. And I decided that I should have put some stars on here on the top of each of them. I think I might go back and do that. But again, I was trying to find some pattern paper to keep it true to this plethora of pattern paper that we were using. And I couldn't find anything in gold or yellow that would look right with it. So I'm gluing that last card front down to the card base, and I messed that up. So it was, the glue wasn't dried, so it was easy to pick it up and reposition it. I'm going to glue the bow down, and then that is the last thing we're going to do for these cards. And we're going to go on to the one that was most challenging for me, which was this crazy busy pattern paper strip paper. I went through my stash and I had those winter bouquet dies out, and there's a candle in them. And I was like, maybe I could cut out patterned candles and put them on here. And let me tell you, when I said I was bad at paper mixing or paper pattern mixing, this took me forever to find patterns that I thought wouldn't be completely clashing or competing with the background. And honestly, I don't even know if I accomplished that. So let me know down in the comments if you guys think that it's way too busy, because for me, this is an extremely busy card. I don't love, like I keep saying, I don't love putting all these patterns together. So thank you, Miss Joan. This was such a challenge for me to go ahead and do, because I was trying to use as much pattern paper as possible and different patterns and put them together. So let me know if it was successful or your recommendations of what you would have done. So there's also there's 2 dies in there that cut out the flames for the candles, because right now these don't look like candles. I did go back and use that black marker and add a little line for the wick, but once the flame goes on top of it, you'll really be able to tell it's a candle. So I was using some Rustic Wilderness and some Crackling Campfire to go around the edges of these candles, just to give it a little bit more interest and some dimension. And then I'm going to go in with a Copic marker, I believe it's Y06 yellow, and just add a little bit of yellow to that flame. Sometimes I will go back in and add some orange to it, but I couldn't find my skinny orange marker that I normally use, and the Copics were way too big for this. So I'm using my Sparkle Blends jewel picker to go ahead and attach these flames to the top of the candles. Another thing that I could have done was picked out a Copic marker that matched the candle, and then there's a little embossing line, kind of like the lip of the candle, that I could have gone around and I could have made that a little bit more defined. If I had a teeny tiny detail brush, I could have done that with the Distress Oxide, but I don't have tiny brushes for those colors. So adding that last flame after I color it in, and going to go ahead and get ready to attach these to the card. And I had a hard time with placement on this one. I'm telling you, this card was the most difficult one for me, but I do think in the end, I probably actually like it the best. So I'm taking the red candle and gluing that down directly to the card front. And then the other 2 candles, I am going to use some foam tape. And I wasn't sure if I was going to stagger them and do them kind of like on 3 different levels, if I wanted to put the 2 green ones right next to each other, covering up the bottom of that red. I really had no idea how to line these up. But I thought that the patterns needed to come off of the paper just a teeny tiny bit. I probably could have done 1 layer on the red and 2 layers on most of the green, like on the left side of this candle and then the right side of the other one, if you do like layers of foam tape. I probably could have done that, but I am kind of happy with the way that it came out. It is really, really busy, like I said, and that is not usually the cards that I make. So you guys are gonna have to let me know in the comments what you think of this. Which technique or which card was your favorite, and do you think that this card was a successful pattern mixing card? Because, again, I really, really struggle with this. To finish off the front of this card, I'm going to go in with some Lawn Fawn Sparkle Glaze and add it to all of the flames just for a little bit of sparkle and shine. And that card is almost done. Now we're going to go back, we're going to look at all the cards, and then I'm going to add sentiment to each and every one of them. So I'm going to be using this stamp set from Hero Art. There are 2 sentiments included in the stamp set, and we're going to stamp this Merry and Bright one twice. I'm using Crackling Campfire to stamp it inside the candle card, and then we're also going to be stamping it on the front of the tree card. I do think that I should have gone ahead and used the Rustic Wilderness on here. I think it needed a little bit more green because the background was red and it wasn't exactly the same red color, but what's done is done. And then I'm going to use that Rustic Wilderness to stamp Peace on the inside of both of the wreath cards. So those were the cards for today. If you guys have not checked out the intro video for the series, I will leave the link to it below. There are some giveaways, so make sure you go over to that video and check out all of the details on how you can win. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back again real soon for another video. Bye!